Part 1. Rooftops and Departures. Istanbul in the 1990s was never silent. Ferries stitched Europe to Asia, seagulls screamed above rooftops, and children kicked worn-out footballs in narrow streets. In this restless city, two girls discovered something neither tradition nor language had prepared them for. Emily was 16, her camera always hanging around her neck. Claire was 17, carrying notebooks filled with poems she never showed. They met because both stayed late at school, Emily for yearbook work, Claire for rehearsals. Walking side by side down a flickering corridor, Claire nodded toward the trophy case. Ever notice how many plaques are for most improved and best effort, not for being the best? Emily laughed. So persistence counts more than talent? I think it rewards honesty, Claire replied. From then on, they sought each other out, sharing tea in the canteen, passing notes in class, climbing to the rooftop whenever they could. The rooftop became theirs. From there, the Bosphorus shimmered with light, minarets pierced the sky, and the air carried the sweet smoke of roasted chestnuts. One evening, Emily tried to photograph the view while Claire leaned against the wall. Their eyes met, and silence filled with something expectant. Claire whispered, "Do you ever feel like the city is watching us? Maybe it wants us to admit something," Emily said. Emily leaned closer. Claire didn't move away. Their lips brushed, trembling into a quiet yes. It wasn't fireworks, but recognition, like remembering something long forgotten. Claire pulled back, laughing nervously. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay," Emily echoed. They planned to meet again the next night, but life interrupted. That evening, Claire's father announced a transfer to Ankara. By morning, boxes filled their home. At school, Claire pressed a folded note into Emily's palm. "We will find each other again." They hugged quickly, too aware of watching eyes. By Monday, she was gone. Emily kept the note until the ink smudged, then tucked it into a book. Promises are like feathers. They drift and vanish in the first hard wind. Years passed. Emily moved to London, studied design, and built a safe, steady life with Daniel, a kind engineer she met by chance. Claire studied literature, won a scholarship to Oxford, and later married Michael, Daniel's younger brother. Neither spoke of rooftops or that kiss. They buried it, believing silence could starve memory, but memory grows roots underground. Several years later, the city intervened again, this time not Istanbul, but London, where both women now lived. Daniel invited Emily to a family dinner, proud to introduce her to his relatives. The flat was filled with warmth and the smells of cumin, garlic, and rice. Plates clattered, children laughed, and the chandelier trembled faintly from the weight of conversation. She was nervous, eager to be accepted. Halfway through the evening, the doorbell rang. Michael entered, shaking rain from his coat, carrying a bag of coffee beans. Beside him stood a woman in a camel coat, cheeks flushed from the cold. Emily froze. Claire, the world tilted, not enough to fall, but enough to force her to grip the edge of the table. Their eyes met, widened, then smoothed into the polite expressions of strangers. "Emily," Daniel said warmly, "this is my brother Michael and his wife, Claire." Claire's smile was careful. "Nice to meet you." "Likewise," Emily said, the words catching in her throat. They shook hands, their palms warm, their fingers lingering half a second longer than manners allowed. The chandelier trembled again, though no one else seemed to notice. The city had reintroduced them, but neither dared to speak its language. Part 2. Storms and Silences. After that first dinner, life continued, at least on the surface. Families are good at creating rituals, and rituals are good at covering silences. There were birthdays crowded with balloons that refused to float properly, Bayram dinners where cousins spilled juice onto rugs, and mothers scolded with laughter instead of anger. Sunday lunches that became law, with roast chicken carved slowly, and Daniel's father always refilling glasses before anyone noticed they were empty. In all of this, Emily and Claire played their parts perfectly. They became model sisters-in-law. Emily shared recipes, Claire shared books. Emily picked up medicine when Claire caught the flu. Claire babysat when Emily worked late. Their glances sometimes lingered half a second too long. Their laughter was sometimes softer, more private, as though the joke had been planted years ago, and only the two of them could water it. They never spoke of rooftops or chestnuts or the kiss that had once rearranged the furniture of their hearts. The family noticed nothing. Or perhaps they did and chose kindness over curiosity. Families sometimes know more than they admit, preferring not to ask questions for which there are no polite answers. Years passed in this careful balance. They gathered, celebrated, argued gently, forgave quickly. Emily and Claire grew expert at being near without touching, speaking without saying. It was loyalty, yes, but it was also exile. It was a storm that finally broke the silence. Late October in London is rarely dramatic. The city prefers drizzle, not fury. But that year, the winds howled as if imported from another continent. Rain hurled itself against windows. Street lamps flickered. Weather reports spoke of downed trees and blocked motorways. Daniel and Michael had planned to drive north together that weekend to celebrate an uncle's milestone birthday. They packed bags, filled the car with snacks, and promised to check in along the way. But a call came just as they were leaving. Their father had developed a fever and cough. The men went to visit, planning to drive on the next morning. By evening, the motorways closed. Another call arrived. "We'll stay in Worcester tonight. Don't wait up." The storm rattled Emily's flat. Her lights flickered, but held. Across the city, Claire's street went dark. She texted, "Power out here. I'm fine," reading by torchlight like a teenager. Minutes later, no signal maybe. Emily typed and deleted before finally writing, "Come here." Then she erased it. She made tea she didn't drink. She paced the living room, listening to the windows hum. At 10:40, the intercom buzzed. Emily jumped so hard she spilled her tea. "It's me," came Claire's voice, tinny but steady. "Street's dark, but I thought maybe you'd have light." Emily pressed the button, heart racing. "Come up." Claire arrived damp-haired, her coat smelling of rain, a torch still clutched in her hand. She laughed lightly, breathless from the walk. "I feel like a Victorian heroine who knows about batteries." Emily laughed too, though her hands trembled. "You're safe now." They ate soup, defrosted from the freezer, sitting at the small table with candles flickering between them. The storm outside made the flat feel like a shelter carved into the night. They spoke of small things, students, deadlines, odd habits of their husbands, Daniel always folding socks into exact pairs, Michael buying more napkins than anyone could need. They laughed, and the laughter felt dangerous because it carried relief. By midnight, the storm eased. The building sighed in gratitude. The quiet that followed was louder than the wind had been. "Stay," Emily said. The word escaped before she could soften it. "The street's still dark." Claire nodded. They made up the sofa together, their hands brushing over sheets and pillows. They sat side by side, not yet ready to sleep. Emily stared at her hands. "I used to think I imagined it," she whispered. "That rooftop, that kiss, that feeling. I thought maybe I'd made it larger in my memory than it was." Claire pulled her knees up to her chest. "I thought the same, that maybe it had been just a spark. But sparks don't sit in your chest for years waiting. They don't become lighthouses." Emily turned, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Claire." Claire reached across the narrow space, her fingers trembling as they landed on Emily's hand. The contact was simple, almost innocent, but it completed a circuit that had been open for too long. For a moment, they just sat like that, hands entwined, the silence thick but kind. Then Emily whispered, "Finish the sentence." Claire tilted her head, puzzled. "You said once that we've been speaking in unfinished sentences all our lives." "Finish one now," Claire exhaled. "I love you." Emily leaned forward, her breath mingling with Claire's. "I love you too." The kiss was not stolen. It was given slowly, reverently, as if the night itself had waited decades for it. At first tentative, then deeper, steadier, filled with the quiet recognition of a truth too long denied. It tasted faintly of soup and salt, but mostly of homecoming. They pulled apart, foreheads touching, both laughing shakily through tears. They kissed again, softer this time. Morning arrived, ordinary as ever. Toast burned, tea steeped, phones buzzed with messages from Worcester, road still blocked. Hope you slept well. Emily and Claire looked at each other across the table, the sunlight pale and hesitant through the blinds. Do you regret it? Emily asked. Claire shook her head. No. For the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm holding my breath. Part 3, Living the Risk. The kiss changed everything, though to anyone else, nothing had changed at all. Toast still burned in the mornings, the kettle still whistled its tired song, and phones still buzzed with messages about blocked roads and missed turns. Yet beneath these small routines, Emily and Claire moved through their days with something new in their chests. A pulse awakened, impossible to ignore. It wasn't that they were ready to upend their lives overnight. Love rarely works in straight lines. What the kiss had given them was not a decision, but a memory restored, a door unlocked. After years of silence, they had tasted the closeness they once lost, and now every hour seemed colored by the longing to feel it again. So they lived differently, though no one else could see it. At family dinners, their eyes found each other across crowded tables, holding for a beat too long before slipping away. In kitchens, their hands brushed as they passed plates or poured tea, and each touch left behind a spark that lingered in their skin. Even their laughter carried a new rhythm, lighter, more private, as though it belonged to a secret they shared. Neither spoke of what should come next. The thought of breaking everything apart was too heavy, too tangled in promises and histories, and yet neither could go back to what had been. So they let themselves drift, carried by a current they had not chosen but could no longer resist. One afternoon, Emily came by under the excuse of helping Claire with shopping. Bags of fruit sat forgotten in the hallway as they settled into the living room, teacups steaming between them. The blinds were half closed, the house unusually quiet. Claire traced the rim of her cup, as if it might reveal answers. Do you ever feel, she asked softly, that we've just remembered who we really are? Emily's gaze lingered on her, steady and aching. All the time. And I'm terrified of losing it again. The words hung in the air like a confession and a vow. Claire reached across the small distance, her fingers trembling as they touched Emily's hand. This time, neither pulled back. Their lips met again, slower, steadier, not the rush of discovery, but the warmth of recognition. A kiss that said, "We are here. We have always been here." When they parted, neither spoke of the future. They couldn't. Instead, they stayed in the moment, breathing together in the quiet. It wasn't freedom, not yet, but it was something alive, something worth the risk. And so their lives continued, not with sudden endings or bold declarations, but with small stolen moments, quiet risks, and the fragile joy of two women rediscovering